when the plane comes out of its parabola, which I probably need to explain that, all of a sudden now you go from weighing 0 to weighing twice your body weight. So like me, I weigh about 200. All of a sudden, for about 30 seconds, I weigh 400 pounds. And that does weird things to your stomach.
This is the Adventure Sports Podcast, where we talk to athletes, adventurers, and business owners from around the world of adventure sports. Whether you're climbing Mount Everest, starting a bike shop, or getting up off your couch to take your kids hiking for the first time, we want you to have the motivation and inspiration you need to chase that next adventure. The Adventure Sports Podcast is brought to you by Camp Crate, the leaders in fully planned self-guided backpacking adventures, as well as backpacking gear rental. You can check them out at campcrate.net. So Mondays take up 15% of your life. Don't spend your whole life not looking forward to 15% of it. I hope your Monday is not stereotypical. I hope you have a great Monday, and I hope this show helps that out a little bit, because that is a huge chunk. That's 1/7 of our life. And frankly, I don't look forward to it all the time. Sorry, my dog's walking in the background, and he and my other dog are crawling in a very small kennel together. That's not going to work, Herc. Anyway, you could probably tell from the title, today's episode is really unique. It is with Curt Liljedahl, and this is definitely outside of what we usually talk about, but it just sounded like a really cool story. He's had some experiences with zero gravity when he was a physics teacher during his career, and he had 2 separate experiences where he was able for quite a long time to go hang out with NASA and do zero gravity experiments and just really amazing experiences. So we've never talked about that. And one thing we always strive for on the show is to talk about sports we don't typically talk about, aside from our main ones, our go-tos. And I didn't know a whole lot about the world of zero gravity. And Curt does a fantastic job explaining it. Very interesting stuff. If you didn't expect to listen to a podcast today about zero gravity, well, join the club. It is Monday, and I don't want it to be a typical Monday for you, so this is a great way to spend it. And so, well, you can let's do this on Tuesday or Wednesday or a year from now if you want. It didn't matter to me. But thank you to our patrons. We have a few new patrons, and we'll announce names at the end of the month. Appreciate it. There are still a lot of you whose cards were declined around the first of the month. We'd really appreciate it if you checked on that, see if you can get that going again. And if you'd like to become a patron, aka supporter of the show, patreon.com/Adventure Sports Podcast. You can support the show for as little as $1 a month, but you will get access to extra bonus episodes and material for if you do $5 a month or more. And the link to that is in the show notes, so we'd really appreciate that. Also, give us a call. It's 812-MAIL-POD, like voicemail podcast, 812-MAIL-POD. Call and leave a voicemail. Send us an email if you have anybody that'd make a good guess. We are really booked up right now, which is awesome. But we want to keep that train rolling, because once this baby's born, I ain't going to have a whole lot of time to work on this, so I'm trying to get as much interviews done as possible. But anyway, man, I hope you're getting out there and doing something this year. I know we haven't talked a lot about that New Year's resolution of getting out there, doing something exciting every chance you get. If it's a bike ride around the block, if it's a walk around the park near your house, or if it's doing the whole freaking AT, do it. There's all of y'all from all around the world that listen to this show. Get out there, do something out of your comfort zone this week that involves the outdoors, that involves adventure sports, and email us to tell us about it. We want to hear from you. We want to keep pushing you to reach your potential. So let's get out there, do something crazy. Speaking of doing something crazy, here is Curt Liljedahl with Zero Gravity. Oops, actually, one last thing. This is not the first time we've had this type of episode. We actually way back in episode 81, we had Story Musgraves, an astronaut, talk about space travel. So I tell you what, we're going to play this episode today, and on Thursday, our revisited episode, we'll do this episode. We'll do Story Musgraves, the astronaut, because, this whole show is about expanding your horizons in the world of adventure. There's not a whole lot out there that's more adventurous than being an astronaut. And the fact that one was on this show is pretty stinking cool. So we're going to do that. All right. Now here's the episode. And so let's start off with you're a 28-year career physics teacher?
Yes.
That's a long time to teach.
Oh, my wife did 32. So.
Oh my gosh. So I take it you're not doing that anymore?
No, we retired. We were lucky enough to retire at a pretty young age of 54. So we moved up here to Iowa and live on a lake and just kind of kick back and relax now.
Wow, that's awesome. So where did you teach?
We taught in McAllen, Texas, or I taught in McAllen, Texas. She taught in Sharyland, Texas.
Wow. Now is that the high school level?
Yes, I was. She was a reading specialist elementary. I was high school. Nicky Rowe High School. Go Warriors.
All right. Cool. Yeah, that's my wife teaches fourth grade, and it's her fourth year, and man, it is. She pulls, and she has some leadership roles at the school, but she pulls some long days. Like, it puts me to shame.
Yeah, nobody works harder than elementary teachers, I'm here to tell you.
It's unreal. Like, we figured out her hourly rate based on how many hours she's actually there, and she coaches a few sports, and man, it is dismal what she's making compared to the amount of time, but she does have a huge impact on the students, which has got to be really rewarding.
It is. What state are you in? I mean, do they pay well there? Or?
Oh yeah, we're in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
So it's not bad, but I know she gets up at 4 every morning. She's out the door about 5:30, and last night she got home at 8:30.
Oh no.
And I know that's not the same for everybody, but she loves to work and loves to take on lots of responsibilities. But
I was a coach too, so I understand the long hours.
Oh yeah. So as a physics teacher, you had the opportunity to do something we've actually never talked about on the show before, at least not to my knowledge. We have talked to an astronaut, but that was many years ago, and I actually didn't do the interview. But you had the chance of going into a zero gravity experience twice.
Yes.
What was that like?
Unbelievable. For one thing, just to get the opportunity to do it, because who gets to train as an astronaut? Not train as an astronaut, but go on those zero-G planes, astronauts, and then. Now there's a corporation out there called Zero G Corporation that does it for private citizens, but it's for like $5,400 for 15 parabolas. A parabola is what you do with the plane and get the 30 seconds of zero G in. So $5,400 for 7.5 minutes of zero G. That's pretty pricey.
That's not a bad hourly rate for whoever's running the company. Golly, that's unreal. Right. So yeah, there's some more opportunities, but man, I don't know anybody that's ever done anything like that. And so, how did you get the experience? And what was the process of like going to the location and figuring it all out?
Okay, well, I'll start with the first time I did it in 2001. The Texas Space Grant Consortium out of Austin, Texas, sponsored this thing. And they just, they're trying to get people enthused about science, this, that, and the other thing. So they had this contest through our regional area, education area things. And you had to submit a experiment that you would do if you had the opportunity to experience zero gravity. So I asked my students, I said, there's this contest for zero G. Who wants to do it? And out of 120 students, I had like 6 kids that wanted to try, which I'm thinking, you big wieners,
Oh,
why
are
don't
you
you?
kidding me? That sounds
Yeah,
awesome. Like, who
yeah.
wouldn't want to do that?
Well, that's kind of where I was thinking. But so we submitted. I out of the 6 kids, 1 girl unfortunately had to drop out, and 1 young man was from the Philippines, and so being we were going to NASA. He couldn't take part in the flight, so we just had him as like our flight crew and stuff like that. But we submitted what we would do if we were to go in outer space, and basically what the premise of that experiment was. They train astronauts in a swimming pool under neutral buoyancy. So we came up with a series of little things that we were going to do while scuba diving at neutral buoyancy. And then we were going to compare those, I guess, subjectively to if we could do those same things in zero gravity,
So what did you propose doing that was different than what they currently did for training?
We were just going to do little things like, swimming an obstacle course through hula hoops, or picking up objects, off the floor of the pool or whatever. Just little movement things, flips and all that.
Wow. And so that won you the competition?
It won our region. They selected like 2 schools from each region. There's 8 regions in the state of Texas, and I think they pulled in a couple from Arizona. But yeah, it won our region, so we were afforded the opportunity. We went up to NASA, which is in like Clear Lake, Houston, up there by Friendswood and like that, and kind of had to raise some money. It was going to cost me about $5,000, but the school was generous enough, and some private organizations were generous enough to help us out with that. And so we raised the money and went up there, and we were there like 10 days.
Why? So it was that long of an experience. And why is that?
They wanted us to do, first of all, some physiological training. And I think that was mostly for education, but we talked about, balance of the human body and, the effects of zero gravity on the body. A lot of training, just, some lectures and stuff like that they give the astronauts. And then we also got to experience, and they toured us all around NASA. That was kind of cool too. But then we got to experience the altitude chamber that they have there. And I don't know if you've it's roughly the size of the inside of a school bus. Okay. And you sit down in there, and then nice chairs and everything. And they say, all right, if you get claustrophobic in any way, now's the time to get out. Because what they do is they seal the door, kind of like submarines and everything, and they start sucking the air out to simulate higher altitudes.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, less air pressure. And so they suck the air out. And when, you think about like Mount Everest is 29,000 feet. The death zone is 25,000 feet. And your average jet plane is pressurized to about 8,000 feet. So they sucked out the air slowly until we were at like I think we did 26,000 feet. Okay.
Wow. Could you tell the difference immediately?
It was interesting in that you kind of get loopy, because lack of oxygen to your head. I said it was kind of like drinking a couple beers, because that impairs your thinking.
Hopefully your students didn't know that.
Yeah, right.
That sensation.
I'm sure they do now, but back then I hope they didn't. But and then they give you a little quiz, and you take the quiz and everything, and you're kind of, like I said, it'd be like taking a quiz kind of drunk, because you're just feeling kind of good, and you see what kind of person the kids are. There was one young man who just sat there like a bump on a log. I'm sure he's a riot at parties. One of my students, Belinda, she just giggled the whole time, so I'm sure she's fun, the happy person at a party. But it was interesting.
Yeah, no kidding. I bet that. I mean, what an experience for your 4 students. You said.
Yeah, 4. Michael didn't get to.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
To say you did that.
And then they started, you're at 25,000 feet, they call it. And then they start pumping air in to bring you back down to sea level. And, you got to equalize your ears. Have you ever, they teach you how to plug your nose and blow out through the eustachian tubes. They call it a valsalvo, which I didn't know it had a name. I just thought it was clear in my ears. And, some of the kids, their ears wouldn't clear. And so they would have to stop the air, stop letting the air in. And then, they had special procedures that they did it so they didn't blow the kids' eardrums.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I've never had an issue with that. I can clear my ears pretty quickly, but, if you can't, wow, that'd be extremely uncomfortable and dangerous.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm sure there was about 1 million waivers you had to sign too.
There were. Matter of fact, all my students and I had to go get a flight physical before this. We had to go to a doctor, and I got the doctor to donate it, but we had to get a flight physical and pass that before we could do this. Yeah, NASA was very stringent in, who they let on the planes.
And so after that simulated elevation experience, what was the process to actually getting on the plane and experiencing zero gravity?
Okay, then basically the rest of the week, we worked with, and we did other things, but we worked with one of the NASA scientists that was assigned to us, and ours happened to be Dr. Jennifer Rockless. I forget her, she's married now. I forget her name, but I'll pass this on to her. And she was working with the robotic portion of NASA at that time, where they developed Robonaut. Robonaut is a very, very advanced robot that has an opposable thumb. Okay. And what we were doing, Jennifer and another guy, Mike Goza, he was a nice guy. They were designing, the robot and everything. Well, what we were going to do was test the software. So we weren't actually going to be moving the robot, but we had these, now you would call them virtual reality glasses, kind of like you get with an iPhone 10 or whatever. But this is back in 2001, and NASA had a goggle thing that you put over your head, and we had sensors that we put on our hands and our body, and you're looking through this virtual reality thing. And when you move your arm, you see the robot's arm moving in the goggles. And so we did that, and basically just practiced our procedure. Like, okay, they let us out of our seats, and now we got to set it up. So we had 2 computers, we had our board we had to set up and everything. And you just practice the rest of the week so you could be very efficient as far as getting your experiment run, because you had to have everything going. And then remember, we're doing 30-second intervals. So you had to do the experiment for 30 seconds. Then you got about a minute and a half to get things ready. Then you do 30 seconds again.
Wow. Now, did you get to actually do your proposed experiments in the test pool?
No, we didn't. We did in our pool, our little experiment that we won the contest with. The local scuba shop, who's a friend of mine, was nice enough to donate time to us, and the kids got to go scuba diving. I was also the aquatics director at my swimming pool, so I got to use the swimming pool basically. And we did it there, but yeah, we never had to do it at NASA, which would have been cool because they have like a 4 million gallon pool, which is awesomely huge.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it was. It was.
I'm sure you have tried some freeze-dried and dehydrated meals before, but I promise you've never had anything close to as good as Peak Refuel. They make freeze-dried meals, which is different than dehydrated. It takes way less water to cook. It cooks a lot faster, and they cook the meals before they put everything together. A lot of companies just throw all the ingredients in there, and when you cook it, it's the first time it's ever been cooked. With them, all the flavors have cooked together. It's super tasty, and you can get 20% off by going to peakrefuel.com and using the code at checkout ASP20. Seriously, give them a shot for whatever adventures that you have planned this year. So you got to test that and get proficient with Robonaut.
Yeah.
Then what?
Then, like I say, we did that for a couple days, and then we basically the last day or two, we did the flights. It was kind of, you had to look at weather and everything, but we got to do the flights. And there were two groups. There was like, I don't know, 6 experiments running on one plane, and then they landed and another group went up in the other in the same plane, but you ran your experiments then.
So what was it like? What kind of plane is it? And then what was it like walking up to it? And what were you wearing? Like what they have you outfitted in?
Oh, they give you these cool jumpsuits. You look like an astronaut, or a test pilot. Yeah.
That's
I said
cool.
they're like something old men wear, but it's kind of like that greenish one that Tom Cruise had on when they would fly their jets. You got to wear one of those. And that was the first time. The second time we wore green one or blue ones. But yeah, walking out to the plane. The plane's a KC-135. It's historically known as the Vomit Comet because about 30% of the people that fly on it actually blow chow. And that's interesting.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they give you plastic bags to put in your pockets because, as the guy who was in charge of it said, if you think about vomiting, okay, it blows out, it goes down. Now, at zero gravity, it comes out of your mouth and it goes straight all the way, until it hits something. And he said he had been baptized 9 times in his, career as a flight instructor on this. Yeah, if you had to puke, you had to grab a bag, put it over your mouth, and puke into the bag, which I'm proud to say out of my 4 students and Dr. Rockless, only one of them threw up, Jennifer. But I can easily see it's not so much the zero gravity, the floating in the air that makes you sick, but it's all of a sudden when the plane comes out of its parabola, which I probably need to explain that, all of a sudden now you go from weighing 0 to weighing twice your body weight. You go from 0 Gs to 2 Gs. So like me, I weigh about 200. All of a sudden for about 30 seconds, I weigh 400 pounds. And that does weird things to your stomach.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about. Yeah, because I've watched plenty of zero gravity, film from astronauts. And when they pour something out or they're eating, things just, you send something off in the direction, it continues until something stops it. And
yeah.
I can't imagine a big glob of vomit coming straight towards you.
Yeah.
In slow motion. I mean,
on one of the flights, I actually got to do water. I took a little water and I squeezed it in the air, and it's just like the astronauts. Here's this blob of water floating in front of you, and you go up to it and suck it in, and you drink the water right out of the air. Totally cool.
Unreal. So being a physics teacher, you are more than qualified to be able to explain how it works. Would you just tell us, people that I assume everyone is maybe heard of it or maybe a little familiar with it, but let's just assume no one is. How does this work? How do you get in an airplane and then experience zero gravity? Okay,
yeah. Sadly, one of the misconceptions among people is that NASA has a room where you can just walk in and throw a switch and people float. Well, you can't overcome the gravitational pull of the Earth, but you can mess with it, and that's what they've figured out. Okay, you got this plane, and basically think about a normal plane, a jet that you fly in, and there's only the seats in back. The rest of it is all pretty much hollow with padding all around it. And the plane takes off, and you're in your seats in the back. The plane flies up to about 35,000 feet, and then it essentially, it has no windows either. That's important to note, because if it had windows, then you would have a frame of reference, and you would see this plane dive bombing towards the ground, and you'd probably freak out. But it's at 35,000 feet, and then it basically goes at about a 45-degree angle, not straight down, but a 45-degree angle. And it matches the acceleration due to gravity, which is negative 9.81 meters per second squared. So they can't just turn off the engines, but they have to go at a certain speed, and they have this all calculated. They have to go at a certain speed, dive bombing towards the Earth. So in essence, the plane is falling out of the sky, and you're in the plane and you're falling. So what you're really doing, I don't know if you've ever skydived, but in skydive, when you jump out, you go faster and faster and faster. Mm-hmm. That's basically what the plane is doing, but you're inside of the plane. And so you get the illusion, I guess, I don't know what the word is, but you get the sensation that you're floating. Because without windows, you don't know the plane is dive bombing. So you're flying along and they'll say, okay, here comes the first one. And they dive bomb the plane, but you don't feel it dive bombing, but you get that sensation like going over the top of a roller coaster where your stomach goes up, You get that sensation. Yeah. And next thing you know, you're floating in the air. And you're thinking, and your first reactions are to throw your arms out, throw your legs out, run in the air. None of that works because it's air, and so it can't help you move. And you just it falls. The plane's going down, accelerating as it goes, and you're inside of it, so you're just floating there. And then after about 25, 30 seconds, they say feet down, coming out, and you have about 3 seconds to figure out where you are, because the plane is going to come to the bottom of the loop and go down and start going back up, and you need to find a place to land. And so you just basically land on the floor, and you might be on top of somebody if you had it timed wrong. You land on the floor, and the plane starts going back up, so now you're pulling 2 Gs, and you weigh twice your weight. Then it levels out, and you have about a minute of being normal, and they do it all over again. And so each parabola, as you go down, you have 30 seconds of weightlessness, about 10 seconds of 2 Gs, and then about a minute or so while the plane climbs up again to be back to normal and set your experiment up and stuff like that.
Wow. So with that 2G time frame, is it dangerous if you were on top of somebody?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, the second time I did it, which I'll tell you about a little later, I mean, you land on people, they land on you, but it'd be like having your 400-pound cousin sit on your lap for a second or something. But now you can't.
I've got one.
Yeah. You got to be careful, because if like you're at the top, the ceiling of the plane, when he says that, you got a couple seconds. Elsewise, you're going to fall. That's where you could hurt somebody.
So all that science and all that just completely sophisticated human ability, it's still just as simple as you got 3 seconds or you're going to slam against the bottom of the plane.
Yeah, basically.
That is so how many times do they do that process during a normal flight like that?
The one that you can purchase for $5,500, they give you 15 parabolas. Basically 7.5 minutes, 30 seconds a time, 7.5 minutes of 0 G. When we did it for NASA, the first time I did it, we did, I want to say 40 to 50 parabolas. And yeah, we were out over the Gulf of Mexico. Cow. Yeah, we got our money's worth.
No kidding.
But we had these experiments to perform. So most of that time, we were hooked up. Like we had one kid running the computers. One kid was doing had the virtual reality helmet on and the sensors. And so actually doing the experiment. And the other person was like the timekeeper. And that, so we did that. And then they said, okay, at the end of it, we'll give you about 8 parabolas to just play. And that's when, you do your flips and you push off things and you take the handful of M&Ms and you let them float in the air and you eat them out of the air and the water and stuff like that. It was fun.
That's so cool. So how long did that entire experience last? 40 to 50 seems like you were there a while.
Yeah, the first time we were out about an hour and a half, but we had to fly out all over the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know if, both times I've done it have been over the Gulf of Mexico. They say they like to be over the ocean, not that you would live if the plane didn't come out, but they say for people on the ground, when they see these planes dive bombing at the ground, it causes panic,
No kidding.
And then, so they like to be out where there's not a lot of people when they run these flights.
Wow. So what's the starting elevation of the parabola, and what's the highest and the lowest, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's around 35 to 22, so about a 12,000 foot drop. That could change depending on a lot of things, but yeah, it's about 12,000 or 35 to 22,000. So you're still up there pretty high.
Yeah, I'm sure for, a fishing boat or something out there to see that.
Oh, shoot.
Probably pretty confusing.
Yeah. I don't know how
that
well.
Is so cool.
Yeah, but it's an awesome feeling, just you're sitting there, and the next thing you know, and I've skydived and I've scuba dived, but the next thing you know, you're floating in the air, and it's really hard to describe it. There's no, like we're sitting in chairs right now, and the pressure on your butt and the pressure on your feet and your spine is getting compressed and all that. You don't have that in zero gravity. Matter of fact, they say an astronaut grows like a quarter to a half inch when they're on the International Space Station, because you don't have that compression of gravity. And so it's weird. I've always said that the coolest feeling in the world that I ever had was when my daughters were born, but this runs a really, really, really close second place. It's just an awesome feeling.
That's understandable. That's a pretty unique experience, I'd have to say.
Yeah.
So what was one of the most surprising things that you felt or noticed that we wouldn't think of, or you didn't think of beforehand?
Like I said, just the feeling of it. All of a sudden, being a physics teacher, we taught Newton's laws, and the coolest thing to me was, if you throw something, like you throw a football and you throw it straight horizontal, it's going to go down to the ground, right? Gravity pulls it down, bullets and all that, they all get pulled down. Right. This one, my student was about 15 feet away from me, and I took a little bouncy ball or whatever, and I threw it to him, and it just went in a straight line right to it.
Wow.
The direction that I threw it, it went. And so it's taken out, Newton's three laws of motion come into play, because an object in motion remains in motion unless outside forces act upon it. Well, gravity's not acting upon it, so that sucker's just going to keep going straight.
That is so cool. Time for a quick message break. So, the show's brought to you by Camp Crate. They specialize in self-guided, pre-planned, all-inclusive backpacking adventures, as well as trip advice, and as well as camping gear rental. So if you're in need of any of that stuff, reach out to them at campcrate.net. Very helpful and very knowledgeable. It's a great way to try backpacking for the first time, or to scroll through their list of itineraries if you need some ideas on where to go. They will literally send you all your gear, your food, permits, coffee even, in a box to your front door. Use it for your trip. When you're done, return it with the pre-printed included return label. It's that easy. It makes backpacking and getting into the backcountry very approachable, very simple. Give them a shot. Now, back to the episode. So when the plane dives, did they ever, if they miscalculated the speed, that would it ever misbehave the effect of the zero gravity? Did you experience that, or are they pretty good at dialing that in?
They're pretty good. I mean, these guys are pros, but they're good at dialing in. But every once in a while, you'd notice you would be floating in the 30 seconds, and if the plane got going too fast, well, the plane would move forward and you would move backwards. Or if the plane got going too slow, you would go forward in the plane. Like one time, I don't know, they misjudged the speed a little on one of the parabolas, and I about ended up in the cockpit. I was having to grab the walls and stuff because I was falling and the plane was going slower. And so I'm going towards the front of the plane. Yeah, that was weird.
Wow. Well, how much space did you have inside the plane? Like, about just the typical passenger plane with everything out of it?
Yeah, it's not a 747 or anything like that, but just think about your average plane with like 3 seats on one side, 2 on the other, and the seats are all gone and the overhead bulk things are all gone, and they just have padding on that, no windows and stuff. So
that is just too much fun, man.
Yeah,
wow.
You got room to move around. I mean, like one time I wanted to do somersaults. Being a diving coach, I thought that'd be cool to do somersaults. So the guy got ready and he had his feet in straps so he could stand up. And we started floating. He just grabbed me and flipped me. I was in a tuck position. He just flipped me and I just spun around in circles until I decided to pull my arms and legs out and stop. It was interesting.
That is too crazy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would probably get sick pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I'm pretty bad with that kind of stuff, but I would still love to experience that. So that's a once in a lifetime chance for most people.
Right.
And you had the experience twice.
Yeah. The other time was about 10 years later, in 2010. Who was that through? Oh, that was Northrop Grumman. They're a huge defense contractor, out there. And these defense contractors, they get all these government contracts to build things for our armed services and all that. Well, because it's a government contract, you can't have foreign people working on it. Like if you go to your average university, there's a lot of foreign kids studying there and they're very smart, but they can't, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you can't work for these defense contractors and stuff if they're on a government contract. And so Northrop Grumman sponsored the Zero G Corporation to have teachers fly. And as teachers, we're supposed to take this experiment or this experience back to our students and get females and, other kids interested in STEMs. They push STEMs a lot: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And they were trying to stimulate us to stimulate these kids to go into your sciences and stuff like that. So that was another thing. You had to apply for it. And I got lucky enough to do it along with one of my friends. Michelle got to do it with me. And we had a group of teachers doing it, elementary all the way up to high school. And they have their way of doing it. But that was, like I said, the Zero G Corporation. You can look them up on the internet. They got a really cool plane called the G-Force One, which now I think NASA uses. They don't have their own plane anymore. They use this corporation, and this corporation goes around the world or the United States and does this for private people, like Dr. Stephen Hawking's, the greatest mind in the world. He got to do it, experience it, and just a lot of celebrities and stuff can do it. They can afford it. Yeah,
no kidding. So was that, how was that experience different then compared to like NASA?
It really wasn't. I mean, okay, with this experience, we were supposed to once again do little experiments. We were just doing stuff like dropping the ball, looking at projectile motion. Does zero gravity expect spring tension and stuff like that? So we had a series of little things we were supposed to do, but to be honest with you, everybody just played. We did about 15 parabolas that time. Once you get there and you're going, everybody played. And
you guys aren't going to discover anything too revolutionary, probably. No. So just play,
Yeah. Well, that's one of the funny stories that NASA told us. They said, if you think about this, everything that's on the International Space Station has been developed for use in zero gravity aboard these kind of planes. And they said one of the funniest ones was the toilet. They had to figure out how to make toilets work and stuff in zero gravity.
No way. I have not ever thought about that.
Yeah. And he says, and the poor test subjects, you got a 30-second window in order to get your business done. And so It worked. They have toilets that work in the space station now. So
Do you know how they work?
yeah, it's suction,
I figured, yeah.
kind of like a vacuum. I mean, it doesn't suck your whole thing, but yeah, it sucks it out. Doesn't use gravity like our toilets do.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought something that I was curious about was sleeping because, you can't just lay in bed. You have to kind of be strapped into your little bunk, and I always
Yeah,
found that pretty fascinating, but I don't know why I had never thought about the bathroom. That's a way trickier thing to figure out.
yeah. That would be a little tougher. A little tougher.
That is so cool, man. That is awesome. So, any hopes of doing it a third time?
Oh, I doubt it. I'm retired now, and I don't think anybody's going to call me up and beg me to go. I'd do it in a second, but I doubt I'll have the opportunity anymore. So
Wow, I don't know. I'm sure it was hard not to talk about it quite a bit when you got back after that first time to your
yeah,
family, to your students.
you feel like that guy on what's his name on Big Bang Theory that went to the space station, and that's all he talked about. I'm sure my friends got a little sick and tired. I know my wife probably got sick and tired of it. So.
That's hilarious, man. So, what else was something interesting about it or something you had in your notes that you'd like to share?
Oh gosh, let me look at them. Altitude chamber, like I said, equipment. There's not a lot, that's basically it. The neat part was as a young kid, I always dreamed, you got your bucket list in life, and mine seems to be getting bigger now that I'm retired. But when I was little, I always thought zero gravity would be the coolest thing in the world because, like I was a diver when I was little, springboards, and you're kind of fighting gravity there, and then we'd jump out of the barn door and land in a pile of hay, and that was kind of cool. And so zero gravity was always my number one on my list, but that's who gets to do that? Well, I mean, having these experiences, I actually got to check off my number one on my list, so that was fun.
That's unbelievable. That's yeah, essentially like being an astronaut on your list is, it's a pipe dream for most people, but you got to actually experience a very one of the coolest aspects of that, which is zero gravity. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I did
Wow.
apply. I did apply for NASA when they were asking for teachers to apply, but I didn't get accepted, and that's fine. I'm sure they had their reasons. Plus, I don't know if my wife would let me go on, but I did apply for NASA. I thought it would be cool to get the opportunity to go to the International Space Station for a couple months or whatever.
Yeah, no kidding. That would be among humans. It's one of the most unique things you can do. There's a comedian I like named Brian Regan, and he did this bit a while back that talking about being at a dinner party and just imagine, letting people talk about themselves and talk about all the things they've done. But you were one of the people who had walked on the moon. And he goes, you're just sitting there eating your food, not minding any, just saying, oh yeah, very interesting, very interesting. And all you've got to say is, I walked on the moon.
Yeah, that would be
And
cool.
the conversation's over.
Yeah, drop the mic. Hey, you're done. That would be cool. That would be cool.
So what kind of things are you getting into now that you're retired? What kind of sports or activities? How do you compare to zero gravity?
Traveling is still a big part of my list. I want to get these trips in. Like we were in Iceland in September. We're thinking about going to Ireland and Scotland in next year, and just traveling. I like traveling, and while I'm young enough and can afford it, I want to get it done.
You're at that time. I dream about it right now, but it's the working years.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's my friend Craig when he did your podcast. He pointed out, younger kids. I was talking to some young teachers the other day. You can't see your life where I'm at, or even older, 65 or anything like that. But if you could see your life, you would save a heck of a lot more money, when you're young, so you could be prepared for it when you get old. I mean, it's such a valuable lesson to tell kids, and I try and pound it into my daughters and everything, and I think they hear it. But, it's tough to envision later on in life and, the live for the moment type of thing. But I don't know. We had a pretty good life, when we were growing up. I don't think I denied us too much, or we denied too much. My wife and I both worked hard, and we traveled well. So, but now we have the time and the money. Now we have the time plus the money to travel. So it makes it easier.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you know if any of those kids that went, your students that went on your zero gravity experience, did any of them have a lasting effect that you know of, or something they can talk about that's really cool now?
Well, one of them, Belinda, is a science teacher. And, I see her on Facebook, and she's teaching science. And I told her, I said, you got to be the coolest teacher there because you've done that. And I think she still shows the video or shows the pictures of when we did zero gravity. So I'm quite proud that, she went into science. I guess maybe it worked a little. That was
that's awesome.
Their master plan to get kids interested in science. So, yeah, quite proud of her for being a science teacher.
Very, very cool. Well, Curt, man, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you. You're a good interviewer. Podcasts I've gotten interested in them in the last couple of years, and I enjoy them.
It's that's when I started getting interested just a few years ago, and I think they're going to have a pretty big future, man. I would choose a podcast over a TV show any day because I can go about my day driving or cooking or a lot of the work I do, honestly, and still listen to something incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
I don't have to sit there in front of a screen.
Yeah.
It's really, I think they're going to have a bright future ahead. So
yeah,
it's awesome. It's an awesome way to consume media.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for what you do.
Oh, I appreciate it. And all right. Well, enjoy your day, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. See ya. First of all, thank you so much for listening to the episode. Secondly, if you would like to get in touch, you can leave us a voicemail at 812-MAIL-POD. You can also send us an email, info@adventuresportspodcast.com. Get a hold of us on Facebook, Instagram. Contact us on the website. There's just 1,000 ways to do it. If you know somebody that would make a good guest for the show, whether it's you or somebody you know with a really cool story or background or does an interesting sport, get in touch. We'd love to have them on. Also, if you'd like to be a patron, aka a supporter of the show, patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. You can sign up for $5 a month. And lastly, thank you to our sponsors whose messages follow right now. If you want to save 20% off the best backpacking food on planet Earth, go to peakrefuel.com and at checkout, use the code ASP20. So after all of this outdoor talk, if you're looking to plan your own getaway, head to backpacktribe.com and get ready for your next adventure. They have customized gear bundles and free shipping, and they'll be able to get you ready for any adventure that you want to tackle. Check them out, backpacktribe.com.